Far away in space, the Xylaxian people lived peacefully for thousands of years. They built beautiful cities with tall crystal towers that caught the light of their 3 suns. Their world was known for its art, music, and deep understanding of the stars. The Xylaxians were tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms and large, gentle eyes that could see colors humans couldn't even imagine. One quiet day, strange, dark ships appeared in their skies. These were the Voidborn, monsters who traveled through space, taking whatever they wanted. The Voidborn were shadow creatures who fed on fear and chaos. Their ships looked like giant black thorns, and they moved without making any sound. The Xylaxians weren't fighters. They had small defense ships, but nothing that could stop the Voidborn attack. Within days, their outer colonies fell. Families fled toward the home planet as the Voidborn destroyed everything in their path. "We have no choice," said Elder Kirtha, the oldest member of the Xylaxian Council. Her skin had faded to pale blue with age. "We must use the beacon." The other council members looked worried. "The beacon might reach them," warned Council Member Drez. Everyone knew who them meant. Humans, Earth people, the Deathworlders. In the Great Library of Xylax, Earth was marked as a planet to avoid. The record showed images of Earth with its wild oceans, massive storms, and dangerous animals. The archives told stories of humans who could survive injuries that would kill most species, who could live in temperatures that would freeze or burn. Others who had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. But the Xylaxians were desperate. Deep under their capital city, they kept an ancient device. It was the emergency beacon, created long ago when the first space travelers met each other. All peaceful species agreed to help if they heard its call. Elder Kirtha placed her 4 hands on the beacon's crystal surface. "We call for help," she whispered as the machine hummed to life. "Anyone who hears us, please help." The beacon sent its message across the stars, a desperate cry traveling at speeds faster than light. 3 weeks later on Earth, in an underground base in the Rocky Mountains, a computer started beeping. Lieutenant Ana Rodriguez was the first to notice. She'd been up for 20 hours straight, drinking her 5th cup of coffee. At first, she thought she was hearing things. "Commander," she called out, her eyes wide, "you need to see this." Commander Li Wei walked over, his face serious as always. His time in the Space Force had left him with scars across his cheek from a training accident. "What is it, Rodriguez?" "It's a signal, sir. Not one of ours. It's not from any Earth, satellite or ship." Li Wei's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying—" "Yes, sir. It's not from Earth at all." They called in the experts. For days, the brightest minds on the planet worked to decode the message. Finally, they understood. "Help us. We are dying. The Voidborn are here." Along with the message came star maps, showing a place humans had never been. When the president of the United Earth Alliance was told, she immediately called an emergency meeting. "Should we respond? We've never met these aliens. We don't know if we can trust them." General Thompson, head of the Space Force, spoke up. "Ma'am, it doesn't matter if we can trust them. Someone needs help, and humans don't ignore calls for help. It's what makes us human." And so Earth prepared for its first rescue mission beyond the solar system. The Deathworlders were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Helena Chen sat alone in her office aboard the space station Horizon, staring at the message on her screen. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of air recyclers. She'd read the alien distress call 20 times already. "Computer, play it again," she said, rubbing her tired eyes. The translated voice filled the room. "Please help. The Voidborn attack our worlds. We are not warriors, we cannot stop them. Anyone who hears this, we beg for assistance." Chen had been in space for 30 years. She'd seen meteor storms and solar flares that could melt steel. She'd faced space pirates in the asteroid belt. But this, a call from another star system, this was different. Her comm unit buzzed. "Admiral, the Security Council is waiting." "En route." "My way," she replied, straightening her uniform. In the main conference room, representatives from every major Earth nation sat around a large table. Some were physically present, others appeared as holograms from across the planet. "Let's get straight to the point," said President Okafor, her voice firm. "We've received a distress signal from an alien civilization. The question is, do we respond?" The Chinese representative leaned forward. "How do we know this isn't a trap? These aliens might want to lure us into an ambush. Our analysts believe the distress is genuine," Admiral Chen replied. "The signal contains detailed information about their star system and the attacking force." The Russian delegate shook her head. "We should focus on our own problems here on Earth. We have hungry people, environmental issues, and a fleet of warships sitting in orbit doing nothing," interrupted the Indian representative. "Ships we built to protect humanity. These aliens need protection." The room erupted into argument. Chen watched quietly, noting who supported intervention and who opposed it. "There's something else you should know," she finally said, and the room fell silent. "The signal included information about us, about Earth." She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the center of the table, alien writing with Earth's solar system clearly marked. Next to it was a symbol that translated roughly as danger. "They know about us," Chen continued. "According to their records, we're classified as Deathworlders, beings from a harsh planet with extreme conditions. They're afraid of us." "Then, why would they ask for our help?" asked the Brazilian representative. "Desperation," Chen replied simply. "They're dying." The debate continued for hours, then days. News of the alien signal leaked to the public. People gathered in streets around the world, some protesting intervention, others demanding humanity help. A week later, Admiral Chen was called to the President's office. "The Security Council has reached a decision," President Okafor said, looking solemn. "It wasn't unanimous, but it was clear. We're going to help." Chen nodded. "What changed their minds?" The President walked to the window, looking out at the Earth below. "Something very human, actually. Yesterday, my daughter asked me what I would do if I heard someone screaming for help outside our house. Would I ignore them because they weren't part of our family? Or would I help because that's what decent people do?" She turned back to Chen. "We've spent centuries fighting each other over borders and resources. But this is bigger than politics. If humanity stands for anything, it should be that we help those in need, no matter who they are or where they come from." "Admiral." Chen felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "I'll prepare the fleet immediately." "This won't be easy," the President warned. "We have no idea what we're flying into." Chen smiled slightly. "With respect, Madam President, humans have always been good at doing the impossible. It's what Deathworlders do." 3 days later, 7 of Earth's most powerful warships began preparations for humanity's first journey beyond their solar system. As Admiral Chen watched her crews loading supplies and running final checks, she couldn't help but wonder what would happen when the aliens finally met the Deathworlders they had feared. For so long, the 7 massive warships floated in Earth's orbit, their metal hulls gleaming in the sunlight. These weren't just any ships. They were the pride of humanity's space fleet. The largest, the Resilience, stretched nearly a kilometer from bow to stern. Its hull bore scars from asteroid impacts and test battles, giving it the look of a veteran, boxer who'd seen too many fights. Commander Jackson stood on the bridge of the Resilience, hands clasped behind his back as he watched his crew prepare for departure. A tall man with dark skin and a neatly trimmed beard sprinkled with grey, Jackson had spent 30 years in space. The scar running along his jaw came from a shuttle crash on Mars when he was just a rookie pilot. "Status report," he called out, his deep voice carrying across the bridge. Lieutenant Rivera looked up from her console. "All systems green, Commander. The wormhole generator is charged to 95%. Engineering reports the engines are running perfectly." Jackson nodded. "And the other ships?" "Thunder, Defiant, Guardian, Sentinel, Protector, and Valor all report ready for jump, sir. 7 ships, 7 crews, over 3,000 men and women, about to travel farther than any human had gone before." The weight of command pressed heavily on Jackson's shoulders. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. "Commander, you have final authorization. The wormhole calculations have been triple-checked. You should emerge directly in the Xylaxian system." "Understood, Admiral," Jackson replied. "Any final orders?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "Bring our people home, Commander. And remember, we're making history today. First contact, make it a good one." The screen went dark. Jackson turned to address his crew. I won't lie to you. We don't know exactly what we're flying into. The Xylaxians sent a distress call and we're answering it. That's what humans do." He paused, looking at each face on the bridge. "Some of you might be scared. That's normal. But remember, we come from Earth, a planet that tried to kill our ancestors every day for millions of years." He pointed to the view screen showing Earth below them. "Our people survived ice ages and volcanic eruptions. We lived through plagues and world wars. We evolved on a planet with deadly radiation, poison plants, and animals that could tear us apart." His voice grew stronger. "And look at us now. We've built ships that can cross between stars. We're not just survivors. We're explorers. Today we take our place among the stars." The bridge crew broke into applause. Jackson felt his chest swell with pride. "Lieutenant Rivera, signal the fleet. Prepare for wormhole jump across all 7 ships." Warning klaxons sounded. Crew members strapped into acceleration chairs or grabbed hold bars mounted along the walls. The ship's massive engines hummed louder, vibrating through the metal floors. At the front of the Resilience, the wormhole generator, humanity's newest and most powerful invention, began to glow. Energy arced between its curved arms like blue lightning. "Wormhole stabilizing," reported the science officer, Lieutenant Patel. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he monitored the readouts. "Coordinates locked on Xylaxian system." Commander Jackson took his seat at the center of the bridge. "All hands prepare for jump in 10 seconds. The countdown began on screens throughout the fleet. Soldiers checked weapons. Engineers watched. Power levels. Medics prepared for possible injuries. 3, 2, 1. Space itself seemed to tear open before the Resilience. What looked like a swirling blue tunnel appeared in the blackness. The ship's engines roared, pushing it forward into the unknown. Jackson felt the strange sensation of wormhole travel, like his body was being stretched in all directions at once. Some crew members groaned, others clenched their teeth. The journey lasted exactly 28 seconds. Then, with a flash of light, the Resilience and its sister ships emerged into a new star system, billions of kilometers from Earth. "Status report," Jackson called out, blinking away the disorientation. "All 7 ships accounted for, Commander," Rivera responded, checking her screens. "Minor power fluctuations, but nothing serious. We made it." Jackson stood up slowly, staring at the main view screen. A red-orange sun burned in the distance. Around it orbited several planets, one with the distinct blue-green color of a living world. Lieutenant Patel scanned for Xylaxian signals or ships. Before Patel could respond, warning alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple contacts," Rivera shouted. "Unidentified vessels on approach vector." "Battle stations," Jackson ordered calmly, as humanity prepared for its first encounter with alien life. The alarm stopped suddenly, and Commander Jackson relaxed his grip on the command chair. The unidentified vessels weren't attacking. They were debris, broken ships drifting through space. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Rivera as the main screen showed the scene outside. Hundreds, maybe thousands of wrecked ships floated in a massive debris field around the 4th planet. Some were clearly military vessels with weapon mounts torn apart. Others looked like civilian transports, their hulls cracked open like broken. "Eggs, any life signs?" Jackson asked, his voice tight. Lieutenant Patel shook his head. "None on initial scan, sir. These ships have been dead for weeks." The bridge fell silent as the reality of what they were seeing sank in. This wasn't just a battle. It was a massacre. "Show me the Xylaxian homeworld," Jackson ordered. The screen shifted to show a blue-green planet. From space, it looked peaceful, almost like Earth. But as the Resilience's sensors zoomed in, the horror became clear. Massive black craters scarred the surface. Cities lay in ruins. What once might have been forests were now burned wastelands. "Life signs on the planet?" Jackson asked, though he already suspected the answer. Patel worked his console, then looked up with sad eyes. "Very few, sir. Scattered. The population centers are empty." Chief Medical Officer Dr. Ling spoke up from her station. "Commander, those craters don't look like normal weapon impacts. The patterns suggest biological or chemical weapons, something designed to clear the planet." Jackson felt sick. He'd seen war on Earth, but nothing like this. Systematic extermination of an entire world. "Sir," Rivera called out suddenly, "I'm detecting a signal. Weak, but definitely artificial. coming from the third moon of the gas giant. Hope flickered in Jackson's chest. Put it on screen. The signal wasn't a message, just a repeating pattern, a beacon. Someone was still alive out there. Set course for that moon, Jackson ordered, but approach with caution. Lieutenant Rivera, keep the fleet in defensive formation. If the Voidborn are still here, I want us ready. The 7 Earth ships moved slowly through the graveyard of Xylaxian vessels. Crew members watched in silence from viewports and on screens throughout the fleet. Many said quiet prayers for the dead, regardless of what species they had been. As they approached the small rocky moon, Jackson ordered a more detailed scan. I'm picking up approximately 5,000 life signs, Patel reported. Excitement in his voice. They've built some kind of underground base beneath the surface, heavily shielded. That's why we didn't detect it at first. Are they Xylaxian? Jackson asked. Based on the biosignatures in the distress call, yes, sir, they're the survivors. Jackson nodded. Open a channel. Let's let them know we're here to help. But before they could send a message, Rivera's console lit up with warnings. Sir, they've activated some kind of defense system. They're scanning us. Inside the underground Xylaxian base, Elder Kirtha stared at the scanner screen in disbelief. Her 4 hands trembled as she read the results. It cannot be, she whispered to the other survivors crowded around her. The ships. They're from Earth? Earth? Gasped one of the younger Xylaxians. The Deathworld? That's impossible. Another council member, Zrel, shook his head. The archives warned us about them. Humans can survive radiation that would kill us. They have bones made of calcium, actual metal inside their bodies. They're predators. Kirtha studied the scans again. The human ships were massive, clearly built for war. Their hulls were thick enough to withstand impacts that would shatter Xylaxian vessels. The largest ship alone could probably destroy what remained of their civilization. What do we do? Asked a frightened voice in the crowd. Kirtha straightened her aging spine. We sent out a call for help and someone answered. Does it matter where they came from? But they're Deathworlders, Zrel insisted. The archives say they fight wars. Against their own kind. They've split the atom for weapons. Their planet has predators that hunt in packs like the Voidborn. Kirtha placed a calming hand on his shoulder. And yet they came to help strangers across the stars. What does that tell you about them? Back on the Resilience, Commander Jackson waited patiently. They're afraid, he said to his officers. Put our weapons on standby. Let's show them we're not a threat. Slowly, the 7 Earth ships arranged themselves in a protective formation around the moon. And then they waited, hanging in the silence of space, hoping the survivors would find the courage to answer. After 3 tense hours, a crackling signal finally reached the Resilience. Unknown vessels, came a hesitant voice speaking in strangely accented English. We receive your presence. Are you truly from Earth? Commander Jackson straightened in his chair. This is Commander Jackson of the United Earth Fleet vessel. Resilience. Yes, we are from Earth. We received your distress call and came to help. There was a long pause, then. We request meeting, safe meeting. Can you send 2 representatives? No weapons. Jackson exchanged glances with his officers. Agreed. I'll come myself. Along with our chief diplomat. Where should we meet? Sending coordinates now. We will meet on moon surface. Neutral ground. 2 hours later, Jackson and diplomat Yuri Chen stood on the barren surface of the Xylaxian moon. They wore standard spacesuits, but carried no weapons as promised. The landscape around them was gray and dusty, not unlike Earth's own moon, except for a range of jagged mountains in the distance. Movement at 2 o'clock, Chen murmured through the comm. Jackson turned to see a small vehicle approaching, kicking up dust as it crossed the rocky terrain. It stopped 50 meters away, and 3 figures emerged. Even through his helmet, Jackson felt his breath catch. The Xylaxians were tall and slender, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Each had 4 arms, and large almond-shaped eyes that dominated their faces. They wore no spacesuits. Instead, a faint bubble of energy surrounded them, presumably their own life. Support technology. They're beautiful, Chen whispered. Jackson stepped forward, hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. I am Commander Jackson. Thank you for meeting with us. The tallest Xylaxian approached. I am Elder Kirtha of the Xylaxian High Council, or what remains of it. Her voice carried a musical quality, even through the translation device she held. It did not expect Earth to answer our call. Jackson tilted his head. Why not? You asked for help. The three aliens looked at each other, their large eyes blinking rapidly. Come, said Kirtha. It is not safe to remain in the open. The Voidborn could return. We will speak in our shelter. They led the humans to a hidden entrance in the side of a crater. Inside, they descended in a silent elevator for what felt like kilometers. When the doors opened, Jackson and Chen found themselves in a vast underground city. Thousands of Xylaxians moved through the cramped space, living in what looked like refugee conditions. Children huddled with parents. Medical areas were overcrowded. All that remains of our civilization, Kirtha said softly. 5,000 survivors from a population of billions. In a private chamber, the Xylaxian elders gathered around a table with the two humans. After removing their helmets, Jackson noticed the aliens staring at them with a mixture of fascination and fear. You truly are from Earth, said one elder, his name translated as Zrel. The Death World. That's the second time I've heard that term, Jackson said. What exactly does it mean? Kirtha touched a crystal on the table, and a hologram appeared. A map of the galaxy with various stars highlighted in different colors. One small section, where Earth would be, glowed red. For thousands of years, the Galactic Coalition has observed your world, she explained. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the harshest, most dangerous planets known to support intelligent life. Chen leaned forward. Dangerous how? Your gravity is crushing. Your atmosphere is toxic with oxygen. Your radiation levels from your sun would kill most species. Your weather, storms, lightning, floods, is extreme. Your planet has thousands of predator species. And your oceans? Zrel shuddered. Vast death traps covering most of your world. Jackson almost laughed, but kept his face serious. Those things seem normal to us. Exactly, said Kirtha. Here's what makes humans so frightening to the Coalition. You evolved on a planet that would kill most sentient beings. Your bodies are dense with muscle. Your bones contain metal. You can survive radiation, pressure, and temperature extremes that would kill a Xylaxian instantly. And then there is your behavior, added another elder. Your history is filled with war. You split the atom to make weapons. Your entertainment often involves simulated violence. Your children play by wrestling and chasing. Even your courtship involves chemicals that increase heart rate and respiratory function, like a constant state of fear. Jackson and Chen exchanged glances. So you're saying we've been quarantined? Chen asked. Deliberately kept isolated from other intelligent species? Kirtha nodded sadly. The Coalition feared what would happen if Deathworlders entered galactic society. They worried you might be unstoppable, unpredictable, but now, she looked around at the remnants of her people. Now we need exactly those qualities. Jackson sat back, absorbing this information. Humans had wondered for decades why they'd found no evidence of alien life. Now they knew. The aliens had been hiding from them all along. Our distress call was meant for peaceful nearby systems, Kirtha explained. We never imagined Earth would hear it or respond. We never imagined Deathworlders would come to save us. Well, said Jackson with a grim smile, the Voidborn are about to discover why we're called Deathworlders. Commander Jackson stood on the bridge of the Resilience, studying the holographic display of the Xylaxian system. After 3 days of planning with the survivors, they had positioned the Earth ships in a defensive formation around the moon base. The Xylaxians had shared everything they knew about the Voidborn, their ships, weapons, and tactics. They always attack in waves, Elder Kirtha had explained, her forearms moving in flowing gestures as she described the enemy's approach. First come the smaller scout ships, then the destroyers, and finally the harvester ships that take away our people. Now Jackson watched the sensor screens, waiting. Lieutenant Rivera hadn't left her post for 18 hours, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Commander, she said suddenly, I'm picking up energy signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts, moving fast. Jackson nodded grimly. Just as the Xylaxians predicted. Sound battle stations. Throughout the 7 Earth ships, alarms blared. Marines checked their weapons. Pilots ran to their fighters. Engineers diverted power to shields and weapon systems. All ships reporting. "Ready, sir," Rivera announced. "Good." Jackson straightened his uniform. Lieutenant Patel, open a fleet-wide channel. Patel nodded, pressing buttons on his console. "Channel open, sir." Jackson took a deep breath. "All ships, this is Commander Jackson. In a few minutes, we'll face an enemy that has destroyed entire civilizations. They think we'll be easy prey. Like the others they've conquered." He paused, looking around at his crew. "Let's show them what happens when you pick a fight with Deathworlders." A cheer went up across the fleet. Jackson smiled briefly, then turned serious again. "Remember your training. Remember Earth. And remember those 5,000 survivors counting on us." Jackson out. The sensors lit up as the first wave of void-borne ships entered range. They were sleek black vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Dozens of them, moving in perfect formation. "They haven't detected us yet," Rivera reported. "Our position behind the moon is hiding our heat signatures." Jackson nodded. "Maintain position, let them get closer." The void-borne ships moved confidently toward the moon base, clearly expecting no resistance. They had destroyed the Zelaxian fleet weeks ago. As far as they knew, only helpless refugees remained. "They're in range," Rivera said tensely. Jackson leaned forward. "Spring the trap. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha." The 7 Earth warships suddenly powered up, rising from their hidden positions. The Resilience led the way, its massive engines glowing blue as it accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Inside the Voidborne command ship, alarms sounded. The Void Commander, a tall figure made of shifting shadows, hissed in surprise. "Unknown vessels," reported one of the Shadow Warriors. 7 ships of unknown design. They're powering weapons." "Destroy them," ordered the commander dismissively. These new ships, whoever they belonged to, would fall like all the others. But these weren't like the others. The Resilience fired first, its main cannon sending a blinding beam of energy through space. The beam struck the lead Voidborne ship, cutting it in half. The explosion lit up the darkness. "All ships engage targets of opportunity," Jackson ordered calmly. "Fighter squadrons launch now." From the bellies of the Earth vessels, swarms of smaller fighter craft poured out. Unlike the rigid formations of the Voidborne, the human fighters moved unpredictably, darting and weaving through space. "What are they doing?" demanded the Void Commander as the sensor screen showed the chaotic movement. "Their formations make no sense." On the Resilience, Jackson watched the battle unfold. The humans were outnumbered 3-1, but they fought with an intensity the Voidborne had never encountered. Earth ships took hits, their shields flaring blue under the assault, but they didn't retreat. Instead, they pressed forward, weapons blazing. Fighter pilots pulled maneuvers that strained their bodies against crushing G-forces, pushing human tolerance to its limits as they flipped and rolled their craft in ways the Voidborne couldn't predict. "Thunder reports shield damage but is still in the fight," Rivera called out. "Guardian has destroyed 3 enemy ships. Our fighters have taken down 12 smaller vessels." Jackson nodded. "Keep pressing them. Don't give them time to regroup." The Voidborne, used to enemies that fled or surrendered, didn't know how to respond to this berserker assault. Their neat formations broke apart as human fighters slipped between their ships, firing missiles into vulnerable spots the Xylaxians had. "Identified, sir," Patel shouted excitedly. "They're retreating. The first wave is pulling back." Sure enough, the remaining Voidborne ships were breaking off, accelerating away from the moon. A cheer went up on the bridge, but Jackson raised his hand for quiet. "This isn't over. That was just their scouting force. They'll be back with their main fleet." "But we bloodied their nose," said Dr. Ling, who had come to the bridge to report on casualties. Jackson allowed himself a small smile. "Yes, we did. And now they know they're not hunting helpless prey anymore. They're facing Deathworlders." In the Voidborne command ship, the Shadow Commander raged as damage reports came in. 26 ships lost against just 7 enemy vessels. "What are these creatures?" he demanded. "Scan them." When the results came in, even the Shadow being felt a chill. The enemy ships were crewed by beings from a high-gravity, radiation-soaked world with an oxygen atmosphere. Beings whose very planet should have killed them long ago. "They're from Earth," whispered one of his officers. "They're Deathworlders. The commander's form rippled with anger, and though he would never admit it, the first traces of fear, word, spread fast through the nearby star systems. The impossible had happened. Someone had fought the Voidborn and won. The mysterious ships had appeared from nowhere and decimated the first wave of shadow ships. In the underground base on Xylax's moon, Commander Jackson had turned a large cavern into an operations center. Military personnel from the Earth fleet worked alongside Xylaxian technicians, setting up communication equipment and tactical displays. "We've received another transmission," announced Lieutenant Rivera, looking up from her console. "This one's from the Tellurian system. They're offering to join our fight." Jackson nodded, studying the star map projected above the central table. Little points of light were appearing all over it, resistance groups coming out of hiding, inspired by humanity's stand against the Voidborn. "Tell them we welcome their support," he replied. "Ask what resources they can provide." Elder Kirtha watched from the side of the room, her large eyes blinking in amazement. Just 2 weeks ago, her people had been facing extinction. Now, hope was spreading across the sector like wildfire. "Commander," she said, approaching the table, "the Galactic Coalition representatives have arrived. They wish to speak with you." Jackson sighed. According to Kirtha, the Coalition had abandoned the Xylaxians when the Voidborn attacked, declaring their system a regrettable loss. Now that humans had shown the Voidborn could be defeated, they suddenly wanted to talk. "I'll meet them." "In an hour," he said. "First, I need to check on our wounded." In the medical bay, Dr. Ling moved efficiently between beds, checking on injured crew members. The Xylaxian healers followed her, watching in disbelief as she removed bandages to reveal, "Wounds already half healed. Your cellular regeneration rate is remarkable," said one Xylaxian healer, studying a Marine whose deep cut from yesterday was now just a pink line. "On my world, this would take 20 days to heal." Dr. Ling smiled. "Human bodies are pretty, good at fixing themselves. It's nothing special where we come from, but to the Xylaxians, everything about humans seemed special. Earlier that day, they had watched in horror as a human engineer worked outside their base without a pressure suit, just an oxygen mask. The Xylaxian gravity was only 0.7 of Earth's, making humans practically superhuman in their strength and endurance. "They carried repair equipment that would require 3 of our people to lift," whispered one Xylaxian to another, "and they worked for hours without rest." In the training area, a group of human Marines demonstrated hand-to-hand combat techniques to representatives from 5 different resistance groups. Species that had been hiding from the Voidborn for months were now learning to fight back. "Don't overthink it," instructed Sergeant Wu, a compact woman with muscles like steel cables. "Use your body's natural weapons, elbows, knees, the heel of your hand. Even if you're physically weaker than your opponent, you can still cause damage if you target vulnerable areas." The aliens watched in fascination as the humans sparred, moving with a fluid grace that belied their dense, powerful bodies. To many of the watching species, evolved on gentle worlds with little competition, the sight of ritualized combat was both frightening and inspiring. A tall, insect-like being from Regulus Prime raised one of its 4 arms. "But the Voidborn feel no pain. They are shadow creatures." Sergeant Wu nodded. "True, but our intelligence suggests they still have physical forms that can be disrupted. And our weapons can hurt them. We've proven that." In another section of the base, weapons training was underway. Humans showed representatives from a dozen worlds how to use the arms they'd brought from Earth, adapted for different body types. "Don't pull the trigger, squeeze it gently," instructed a grizzled gunner's mate to a group of blue-skinned Andorians. "Let the recoil surprise you." Commander Jackson walked through all these areas, observing the alliance taking shape around him. Species that had once feared Earth as a death world now looked to humans with hope and admiration. In the communications center, messages poured in from across 3 star systems. Resistance cells reported Voidborn patrol ships destroyed. Supply lines disrupted. For the first time, the Shadow Empire was facing organized opposition. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Patel excitedly, "we've received a transmission from the Draconian fleet. They've been in hiding since their homeworld fell. But they want to join us. They have 20 warships." A cheer went up around the room. Jackson allowed himself a small smile before turning back to the tactical display. Later, in the meeting chamber, 3 Galactic Coalition representatives sat across from Jackson and Kirtha. The Coalition members, tall, elegant beings with silvery skin, looked uncomfortable. "Commander Jackson," began the lead representative in a musical voice, "the Coalition wishes to apologize for the misunderstanding regarding Earth's status." Misunderstanding? Jackson's voice was deceptively calm. "You isolated my planet, labeled us dangerous, and left the Zelaxians to die." The representative shifted nervously. "Our protocols regarding Deathworlds were established for everyone's safety. We never anticipated that we'd be exactly what was needed when the Voidborn came." Jackson finished for him. "That the very traits you feared, our strength, our endurance, our willingness to fight, would be the salvation of peaceful species like the Zelaxians." Elder Kirtha placed one of her 4 hands on Jackson's arm. "Commander, what matters now is moving forward. The Coalition has resources we need." Jackson nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right, so," he turned back to the representatives, "are you with us or against us?" The Coalition members looked at each other, then at the human whose people had traveled across space to help strangers while they had turned their backs. "We are with you, Commander," said the lead representative. "Earth will no longer be classified as a restricted world. The Coalition officially recognizes humanity as allies." Jackson stood, extending his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, the Coalition representative took it. Outside the meeting room, news of the alliance spread through the base. Humans, Xylaxians, and representatives from a dozen other worlds celebrated together. For the first time in galactic history, Deathworlders were not feared. They were thanked. The warning came at dawn, Earth time. Lieutenant Rivera's voice cracked over the intercom, waking Commander Jackson from his first real sleep in days. "Sir, they're coming. All of them." Jackson was on the bridge in 3 minutes, still pulling on his uniform jacket. The main screen showed the space beyond Xylax's moon, hundreds of black ships moving toward them like a cloud of deadly insects. "How many?" he asked, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. 217 vessels, sir," Rivera replied, "including their command ship. It's 3 times the size of the Resilience." Around the command center, humans and aliens worked frantically. The coalition they'd built over the past 3 weeks included 30 alien warships and countless fighter craft, but they were still outnumbered. "They're throwing everything at us," Jackson said, studying the tactical display. "This is their final push." Elder Kirtha stood beside him, her blue skin pale with worry. "Can we win, Commander?" Jackson met her 4-eyed gaze. "We don't have... it's our choice." The battle plan was set in motion. The Allied fleet moved into position, human ships taking the front lines while their alien allies provided support. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch. On the moon base, emergency teams stood ready. Jackson addressed the combined fleet from the bridge of the Resilience. "Today we face an enemy that believes we should not exist. The Voidborn see life as something to be harvested and consumed. They've destroyed worlds and enslaved entire species." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew, tired, scared, but determined. "But they've never faced a united galaxy. They've never faced Deathworlders fighting alongside our allies. Today we show them what that means." Throughout the Allied fleet, beings of a dozen different species listened. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Some breathed methane instead of oxygen. Some had never known violence until the Voidborn came, but all of them understood what Jackson was saying. "For Earth, for Xylax, for every world they've threatened, today we stand together." The cheer that went up transcended species and language. The Voidborn struck hard and fast. Their black ships poured fire into the Allied lines, expecting the same easy victory they'd always achieved. Instead, they met a wall of determination, unlike anything they'd encountered before. Human tactics were unpredictable. Ships that should have retreated pressed forward instead. Fighters darted through impossible gaps, pilots enduring G-forces that would have knocked out most alien species. The Resilience led the charge, its massive guns tearing through the enemy's front line. In the Voidborn command ship, the Shadow Commander raged. "Why don't they break? Why don't they run?" 6 hours into the battle, The Allied forces were holding, but taking heavy damage. 3 human ships had been destroyed. The alien vessels were falling back, unable to withstand the concentrated fire. Then disaster struck. A group of void-born destroyers broke through the defensive line, focusing their weapons on the Resilience. Explosion after explosion rocked the human flagship. "Hull breach on decks 6 through 9, shouted Lieutenant Patel over the blaring alarms. "Life support failing." Jackson grabbed a console as the ship shuddered. "Seal those sections. Get emergency teams down there." "Sir," Rivera called out, her face streaked with blood from a cut on her forehead. "We've lost main power. Weapons are offline." The lights on the bridge dimmed, then switched to emergency red. The air grew thin as life support systems failed. Around Jackson, his alien allies, representatives from the coalition who had joined them on the bridge, began to gasp and collapse. "Get them to the escape pods," Jackson ordered, helping a Zalaxian officer to his feet. "What about you?" Elder Kirtha asked, struggling to breathe in the thinning atmosphere. Jackson smiled grimly. "We're Deathworlders, remember? We can handle this." Throughout the damaged ship, a remarkable scene played out. While alien crew members evacuated, humans remained at their posts. As oxygen levels dropped to what would be fatal for most species, humans simply breathed faster. As temperatures plummeted due to failing environmental systems, they put on jackets and kept working. "Backup power coming online," reported an engineer, her breath visible in the freezing air. "Rerouting to weapons systems." In the engine room, technicians worked feverishly to restore power, their hands numb with cold but still functional. One man held a heavy beam in place with his bare hands, while others welded it, the metal burning his skin. Pain he simply accepted and worked through. On the bridge, Jackson coordinated the counterattack. His voice was hoarse from the thin air, but his mind remained clear. "All Allied vessels, focus fire on their command ship," he ordered. "We've identified a weakness in their shielding." Rivera looked up from her station, frost forming on her eyelashes. "Sir, engineering reports they can give us one more full-power shot from the main cannon." Jackson nodded. "Target their command ship. Everything we've got." Across the damaged bridge, human officers worked with grim determination. The temperature had fallen to 15 degrees Celsius. The air was thin enough that any Xylaxian would have suffocated minutes ago. But these were humans from Earth, evolved to survive ice ages and thin mountain air. "Weapons locked on target," Rivera reported. "Ready to fire." Jackson took a deep, painful breath of the freezing air. Fire. The Resilience's main cannon fired one last desperate shot. The energy beam cut through space, striking the massive void-born command ship at its vulnerable point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the black vessel erupted in a blinding explosion that rippled outward, engulfing nearby void-born ships. "Direct hit!" someone shouted. On the tactical display, the remaining void-born vessels were breaking formation, scattering in confusion with their command structure destroyed. The Allied fleet pressed their advantage, pursuing the retreating enemy ships. Victory was within reach. Hours later, as emergency teams restored life support to the Resilience, word spread throughout the Allied fleet and back to the moon base. The Voidborn had been defeated. Their main force was destroyed or scattered. In the medical bay, Dr. Ling treated humans for frostbite and oxygen deprivation, survivable injuries for their species. The alien medical staff watched in amazement. They continued fighting in conditions that would kill any of us instantly, one Xylaxian healer said in awe. "How is this possible?" Dr. Ling shrugged as she wrapped a bandage around a technician's burned hands. "We're from Earth. We adapt." News of the battle spread across the sector, growing with each telling. The story of how humans fought in the freezing vacuum, how they endured what should have been fatal conditions, became legend overnight. The Deathworlders had saved them all. 3 months after the final battle, the Xylaxian homeworld was coming back to life. In the capital city, where once there had been only ruins, new buildings rose toward the 3 suns. The streets bustled with activity, Xylaxians working alongside humans and a dozen other species in the massive reconstruction. Effort Commander Jackson stood on a hilltop overlooking the city, watching the sunset paint the sky in purple and gold. He'd lost weight during these months, and new lines had formed around his eyes. but there was a quiet satisfaction on his face as he observed the rebuilding world. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" asked Elder Kirtha, joining him on the hilltop. Her blue skin had regained its healthy glow, and she moved with more energy than when they'd first met in the moon base. "It is," Jackson agreed. "Your people have accomplished so much in such a short time." Kirtha's large eyes blinked in the fading light. "With your help, without Earth's ships, we would all be gone now." Jackson shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. As most humans were. "We did what anyone would do." "No," Kirtha said firmly. "Not anyone. That's what we've learned. That's what the Coalition failed to understand for so long." In the distance, a shuttle descended from orbit, sleek and silver, bearing the emblem of the Galactic Coalition. The High Council was arriving for today's ceremony. "Are you ready?" Kirtha asked. Jackson straightened his dress uniform. "As ready as I'll ever be for politicians." The Great Hall of Xylax had been one of the first buildings restored. Its crystal walls caught the last rays of sunlight, sending rainbows dancing across the gathered crowd. Representatives from 27 worlds sat in tiered seating, watching as the Coalition High Council took their places at the front. Jackson sat with his senior officers in the front row. Lieutenant Rivera, now Captain Rivera, sat beside him, her new rank insignia gleaming. Lieutenant Patel had also been promoted, along with many others who had distinguished themselves in the battle. The head of the Coalition Council, a tall being with flowing silver robes and skin like polished metal, stood to address the gathering. "We come together today to mark a turning point in galactic history," he began, his voice amplified throughout the hall. "For centuries, the Coalition has classified worlds based on environmental conditions. Planets like Earth were designated as death worlds, places so harsh that we believed their inhabitants must be dangerous, unpredictable, and best avoided." A murmur ran through the crowd. Jackson kept his face neutral, though he felt Rivera tense beside him. "Today," the council head continued, "we acknowledge that this system was deeply flawed. What we feared as aggression was in fact extraordinary. Resilience. What we saw as dangerous unpredictability was actually remarkable adaptability." The council head gestured toward the human delegation. "When the Voidborn threatened this sector, it was the humans, the Deathworlders, who answered. A call for help from strangers across the stars. It was humans who fought in conditions that would kill most of us instantly. It was humans who taught peaceful species how to defend themselves." He paused, looking directly at Jackson. "The very traits that made us fear them, their strength, their tenacity, their willingness to endure hardship, made them the perfect allies in our darkest hour." Throughout the hall, beings of all species nodded in agreement. Many of them wore bandages or had visible injuries from the fighting, badges of courage inspired by their human allies. "Therefore," the council head announced, "the Coalition hereby abolishes the Deathworld classification system. Earth is recognized as a full member of the galactic community, with all rights and privileges." Applause thundered through the hall. Jackson felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a weight he hadn't even realized he was carrying. Earth was no longer isolated, no longer feared. Elder Kirtha rose next, her forearms raised for silence. When the hall quieted, she spoke in a clear, strong voice. "The Xylaxian people owe our continued existence to Earth. But beyond our gratitude, we have gained a new understanding of the universe." She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of worlds. "For too long, we peaceful species believed that gentleness was the only virtue. We avoided conflict, thinking it primitive. We built beautiful art and music, but forgot how to protect it." Her voice grew stronger. "The humans taught us that strength and compassion can exist together. That being willing to fight doesn't make you violent. It makes you able to defend what matters." From the back of the hall, a small Xylaxian child broke away from her parents and ran down the central aisle. No one stopped her as she approached. Jackson handed him a crystal flower, a symbol of highest honor in Xylaxian culture. Jackson accepted it with a smile, kneeling to be at eye level with the child. The moment was captured by dozens of recording devices, the fierce human commander gently accepting a gift from a blue-skinned alien child. The Xylaxian Council proposes a formal alliance with Earth, Kirtha continued, watching the interaction with shining eyes. Not out of fear or mere gratitude, but out of respect and the recognition that we are stronger together. Different worlds have created different strengths in us all. A human diplomat rose to accept the proposal, speaking of friendship and mutual protection. Treaties were signed, promises made. But for many in the hall, the most powerful moment remained that simple exchange, a child thanking a soldier from a distant world who had crossed the stars to help strangers. Later, as celebrations continued in the Great Hall, Jackson slipped away to a quiet balcony. The night sky above Xylax was different from Earth's, unfamiliar stars in unfamiliar patterns, but beautiful in its own way. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, about the lives lost and saved, about how a message sent in desperation had changed the course of human history. Thinking deep thoughts, Commander? Dr. Ling joined him on the balcony, offering a glass of alien fruit juice. Jackson accepted it with a nod. Just wondering what happens next. We came to fight a war. Now that it's over, now we build something better, Ling finished for him. The Coalition's sending scientists to Earth next month. We're sending teachers here. Trade routes are being established. This is just the beginning. In the hall behind them, humans danced with Xylaxians, teaching them Earth music while learning their floating dance style in return. Engineers from both worlds excitedly discussed technology exchanges. Military personnel compared notes on tactics and training. You know, Jackson said thoughtfully, they called us Deathworlders because our planet tried to kill us. But maybe that's exactly what prepared us to save others. Dr. Ling smiled, raising her glass in a toast. To Earth, then, the death world that taught the galaxy how to live. Across the stars, the message was spreading. Humans had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same again.